New York-based author, serial entrepreneur, mentor and advisor Sonny Bates' clients have included some of the world's most prominent companies, from Credit Suisse to MTV, the National Academy of Sciences, Tech Stars and Kickstarter, of which she's a founding board member. And she's in New Zealand and joins me now. Gosh, what a busy life you have.
Indeed, and BlackRock, and I also am a partner in a data science company. So yeah, it's even busier than it sounds.
You're here talking to venture capitalists and entrepreneurs. What do you think or even know about our capital raising network so far?
Well, I've actually done quite a bit of research because I'll be speaking tomorrow, or actually I'll be speaking at Thursday at the annual conference. So I've done quite a bit of research, as we all would like to do, and we need to do before we address a group. I think that I guess the biggest surprise to me is, with all of the extraordinary work that you have done around governance and all the extraordinary work you've done about making yourselves a glorious place to do business, and the principles of which you operate and how you do business, that you're still stuck in primary industries. I don't get it.
Is it, we talked before we started this interview, you've just flown over from New York. Is our geography a disadvantage to us? I mean, I know we all communicate worldwide, but we're a long way from anywhere.
Your geography is, I think, a distinct disadvantage if you're making and exporting primary goods. If you're doing anything intangible and anything that's digital, that scales infinitely, it's without boundaries. So it all depends on what you focus on. But if you're shipping meat and milk around the world, yeah, it does make a difference.
You say that the main thing to focus on is building networks. Can you explain that?
Well, I think that networks are the way that we accelerate everything, and human networks are the way that we accelerate things. And if you talk about the ways in which you as a human operate, typically you work along your relationships. That's how you grow. The more explicit you can be about your networks, the more explicit you can be about building your networks, the more explicit you can be about directing your growth as an organization, as an institution, as a nation, as an individual.
How difficult is it, though, for young entrepreneurs to make those connections?
Not at all. They just have to be intentional about it. I mean, why is it? It's as simple as an email. It's as simple as a WhatsApp group. It's as simple, you choose your social group of which you want, or your tools you want to use, and begin to reach out to people that you want to meet and find out who you know and who they know, and what it is that's most important for you to be able to give to those people that you want to connect with. Not take, but give.
But I guess the question, though, is how do you get noticed? And I'm sure there's a lot of CEOs or presidents of companies who get thousands of emails from thousands of different people. How do you stand out among that crowd?
Well, it depends on what you're reaching out for. If you just want to connect with a CEO with no particular reason, just because you want to know them, that is hard to get noticed. If you've got something of real value and you want to bring it and you want to engage with people, then that's not so difficult. It's how do you make it distinctive in any way? It's difficult. You have to have your story. You have to understand what you're asking for. You have to understand what you're willing to give, what you're willing to do for that.
Well, let's talk about that. How do you leverage your contacts?
Depends. Okay, do a scenario. Give me a scenario. How do you as a newscaster leverage your contacts? Right, you're working at things, you want to get an inside scoop. You've been doing it for some time. There's other people who've done it much longer than you have. You know that a friend you worked with 3 jobs ago, or someone you went to school with, or somebody you knew down the street because you know their mother, happens to be good friends with somebody that you want to use as a source. Triangulating that relationship and going through that particular person is going to make your way in much easier. It'll be a smoother way in because you have that sort of transitive property of trust. So that's how you want to do that. So I think that one of the most important ways, is to look very broadly at the concept of networks and not to think about them as, I need to meet this person, or this person's important in an area that's of interest to me, so I'm just going to kind of bluster my way through them. I think that's not an appropriate way to network, and you're not going to be able to form a strong human connection that way.
When you talk to New Zealanders, it's interesting that because the view is that Americans are always, you see them on game shows, whoa, 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 whereas New Zealanders, we tend to just sit in the back and clap quietly. So how, I guess we've got that mentality of we don't like to put a hand up. We don't like to say, oh, pick me. Or if you turn to someone and you say, use who you know, it's always very hard to go, oh, no, I don't like to do that. How do you get over that shyness? Or is it a case these days of you either get over it or you're not going to have a business?
Well, I think it's both. I think you need to get over that, and I think if you don't get over it, it's going to be much more difficult. And I wouldn't go so far as to say you're not going to have a business, but I would say you're hampering yourself and making things much more difficult than they need to be. I think that what you seem to be describing is the tall poppy syndrome, that I think is a huge problem, and I think that there's something beautiful that is very much a part of the New Zealander values. Is part of the reason why I love it here so much. I love the New Zealander people, is that you have this deep commitment to egalitarianism, and I agree with that, and I think it is fantastic. I also think that all talent is not created equal, and all relationships that people have are not necessarily equal. And you'll say, who are the most important relationships that you have, and those you want to take extra care with, and who are the other relationships that you need to develop in order to go where you want to go, and those you may take extra care with, but not as much as those people who are closest to you. But I do believe in this question, we don't want to raise our hand. I think that there's a couple of things that are probably at work in that case. One of them is are you punished for raising your hand? Are you punished for knowing the answer and knowing the right answer and then telling it? Do people make you feel bad, or do they punish you in some way? And if so, that's a problem. That's a big problem, because it means that people are going to be kept down. And you know what happens when you're kept down? What do you do?
Is it time, do you think, then, that we learn to be comfortably arrogant? And I mean that in a way of knowing what we're good at and accepting it, knowing what we're not good at and doing something about it, but actually saying, yes, I'm good at that, and I know I'm good at that.
I guess I wouldn't put it quite arrogant. I think arrogant is when somebody is good at something and they're describing themselves, their abilities or their accomplishments far more embellished than they actually are. And I think being comfortable with your accomplishments and being comfortable with your skills and your abilities is a really important thing to do, because it will help you move through life without standing in the background. And I think that no one wants to really stand in the background. People deeply want to matter. And it feels great when people say you're doing a good job. It feels great when you can stand up and know the answer and move something forward. That feels great. I don't think you have to be arrogant in order to do that.
When you started off, did you have a big vision of where you wanted to go to, or was it more of a step-by-step for you?
I think that I'm not really a planner. I kind of back into most things, and I always felt a little bit badly about that, because it feels like there's a lot of mess. It feels like I'm sort of leaving a lot of opportunity behind by not being strategic and not planning. I think that I had a vision of certain kinds of things, what I wanted my life to be like when I was younger, and I far exceeded those visions. And basically, I've exceeded all from growing this extraordinarily vibrant, active network that allows me to have access to the kinds of things that I never believed were possible. So I'm also a future person, so I kind of live in the future, and I'm interested in initiatives and enterprises and organizations that are pushing forward in the future, and I'm interested in people that are present to future as opposed to present to past. I'm not so interested in the past. I'm not so interested in living and trying to maintain institutions that we've moved beyond or that don't necessarily serve us well.
Sonny Bates, thank you so much for talking to us.
Very nice to talk to you, Grant.